bikes today. Gonna do some practice, some riding. There's something I like to do when I'm riding is practice no clutch motos. For me, the clutch was a huge problem for me growing up. My dad had to buy a clutch about every week, which is not good. The clutch is it helps a lot of people go faster, but you can really abuse it. To me, it's kind of like alcohol. Abstaining from it is probably the best. You can use it a little bit, but if you get out of hand with it, it's going to cost you physically and financially. I don't know if that's a great comparison, but stay away from the clutch when you're motoing. So what I'm going to do is some no clutch motos. When I first go out, I'm going to use the clutch, and then I'm going to do some motos with no clutch. What that does is it teaches you your proper braking points. So a lot of people, they ride their rear brake way too far into the corners. Well, if you're doing no clutch motos, you can't do that. It's going to teach you where to get off the rear brake and the proper spot to get off the rear brake. If you ride it too far, you're going to stall your bike going into the corner. So no clutch motos are good for roll speed, momentum, cornering, and technique too. It's also going to teach you how to lean your bike properly. A lot of people, they get in the habit of using their clutch, they pull it in and they use that to lean their bike. So by doing no clutch motos, it teaches you all the proper braking spots. It teaches you how to control the RPM and the torque and the throttle of the bike. And it also teaches you proper technique about how to lay the bike in there without using a bunch of different controls to lay your bike over in the corner. So no clutch motos. Another thing for me with the clutch too, if I'm having a bad day at the track and I'm getting arm pump and I'm just like, man, I'm trying so hard, I'm riding so aggressive and I can only do a lap, I'll go out there and do motos with no clutch. My arm pump will instantly go away. The clutch, yes, the clutch can help some people. As far as going faster, you can be on polar ends. You can be a clutch abuser or a non-clutch user. Growing up, I was a clutch abuser. Even when I was a professional, I was a clutch abuser. I went through a lot of clutches. The four-strokes, modern bikes nowadays, you can ride laps and laps and laps without a clutch. Your lap time should be pretty comparable between using the clutch and not using the clutch. If you have a big gap in variation in lap times between using the clutch and not using the clutch, you got to do some more no clutch motos. So we'll go do some no clutch motos today. I'll have a little Lit Pro data and see how I can compare my lap times with using it and not using it. Alright, so I did my no clutch moto like I was talking about, and the first session I went out riding normal with the clutch. I ran a 127.8. Then I went out and I did a no clutch moto. Kind of started off a little slow. I was around like 128s, then I got it down within the 127s, and my fastest was 127.4 without ever touching the clutch. What I learned with not using the clutch was there was points on the track where I was pulling the clutch in where I didn't need to. So I was pulling it in some of the sandier, tighter ruts, and I really didn't need to, and I had better control without pulling the clutch in. So in turn, what that did when I went out and then I stopped, after I did my no clutch moto, I went out and did a regular moto again and then knocked another second off, and I went down to 126.25, and then I stayed there for the rest of the day. Which if I think I would have stayed with my normal riding, I probably would have stayed around the 127s. Maybe I would have broke down to 126, but by doing the no clutch moto, one, I didn't get any arm pump, and I was able to figure out where I didn't need to use the clutch. I think when you go out and you're just banging on the clutch, you're going to be using it in spots where it's not needed, and it's actually slowing you down. You're going to pull it in, it's going to make it lean over, stand back up. It's going to do a bunch of weird things to you. You go out, you don't even need to do a whole session without the clutch. Just do 5 or 6 laps with no clutch, and you'll realize the spots where you're pulling it in where you absolutely don't need the clutch at all. And if you want to keep roll speed, momentum, and keep going faster around the track, get off the clutch. You're going to go way faster than you think you are. You might not feel like you're going faster, but the stopwatch won't lie. When you get off the clutch, there's no reason to be hammering the clutch on a four-stroke. So that was the results of it, and I'll go over the Lit Pro data with the clutch, without the clutch. I'm sure it's going to be pretty similar. From the initial point, the initial one, I went actually slower than when I didn't use the clutch. And then when I went back to riding normal, but finding myself not using it in certain areas, I went faster. So that was the results.
All right, so here is the Lit Pro information I have, or data. With the Lit Pro, the red is deacceleration and the yellow or green is acceleration. So you can see with this track, with the clutch or without the clutch, I was pretty even on lap time. So lap 6, where it says lap 6 on there, that is my with the clutch. And then the other one that just says Billy's Lit Pro is without the clutch. But what you can see is I've done a lot of training without the clutch, so my braking points are pretty identical with the clutch or without the clutch. So you can see how the red is fanned out, and almost every corner is pretty much the same. But the one thing you can see is when I started going without the clutch, like that last corner, I did not brake as deep into the corner. So those spots where the red is fanning out more into the corner, that was where I was using the clutch and pulling the clutch into the corners. So I was only about 0.3 of a second faster when I rode without the clutch. And I think the 0.3 was gained by braking, getting off the brakes a little earlier and not using the clutch. And I was kind of forced to get off the brakes earlier because I couldn't run them as deep into the corner. Right here, there was a little triple, but this corner right here, if you look at the red fanning from the deacceleration, you can notice that the without the clutch moto, the one that does not say lap 6, how much earlier I was getting off the brakes before that corner. And that in turn turns into roll speed or momentum through the corner. So like I said earlier, not using the clutch, doing motos without the clutch, that is going to improve your roll speed and your momentum through the corners. And it's also going to save you a lot of energy, because when you are using the clutch, you got to think about it. It's a 230-pound motorcycle, and when you clutch it, you're going from taking the power away and then giving your bike a burst of power. And if you're on a 450, that's a lot to control. And if you do that 7, 8, 9 times around the track and you're popping the clutch, the bike is very hard to control. So hammering the clutch, not going to save energy. Not using the clutch will save you a lot of energy and help you last longer throughout the motos.